student organization, there. I was also part of the debate team at Gambia High School. So, and I was engaged in sports, in other community activities. So, and some of the teachers, some of the students who were at Gambia College knew about my activities in the community and previously in the student movement at Gambia High School. Sixth form, what did we call then the sixth form union. So I was identified, and it was suggested to me by the previous by the one who was the president of the students' main union, who was then Ibrahima Kanute and the others. So Ibrahima Kanute and the others, they were the ones who suggested that they would like me to run for president, Gambia College Students' Main Union.
And while you were president of the Gambia College Students' Union, did you also hold another position simultaneously in another union?
Yes, while I was president Gambia College Students' Main Union, I also became vice president of GAMSU. Now, this is how that went about. Before I became president of Gambia College Students' Main Union, there was misunderstanding between high school students and college students as to who was to be, as to where the president of GAMSU should come from. And as a result, GAMSU was not functional during those years. But in my campaign to become president of Gambia College Students' Main Union, I promised students that once elected president, we would go in a rapprochement with GAMSU so that we could have a functional National Student Union. In fact, I was made president Gambia College Students Union Main Union through the polls unopposed, and then we immediately started contacts with GAMSU, and then we started putting the National Student Union together again and making it functional.
I'd like to focus on GAMSU itself as a student union body. Can you tell us a bit about what was GAMSU's mandate?
GAMSU was basically, since colonial days, basically it was mandated to overlook the welfare and the interests of Gambian students at the national level. It was as a result of its pre-independence background. It had an element, initially it had an element of, it was a pressure group, and at the same time it was an interest group. So, and it brought together students from all over the country, but at tertiary and juniors, what used to be initially high school and junior secondary school. Basically, her mandate was to look after the welfare and interests of the students.
Can you tell us a bit about what were some of the ways in which GAMSU carried out that function in relation to student welfare?
GAMSU had two. It has always had two organs. That's the general executive and the central executive, and it has organs as well, like the besides all ex-officio members, because they were not.
I would like to ask you a few questions, which is something that you've just alluded to. So in 1999-2000, can you give us the names of the president, vice president, and the secretary general of GAMSU?
Okay. I was the president, Omar Diouf. The vice president was Alaji Esda. The secretary general was Senabu J. The assistant secretary general was Daniel Davis. The treasurer was Alassane Cisse. I can't remember the assistant. The auditor was Sanusi Drame, and then you had the information secretary was Alaji Kamara. The public relations officer was Usman Bah. The external relations officer was Babukar Jonga, and then you had this chairman of the advisory committee was Babukar An, deceased. His assistant was Mahmoud Njai. This is the members I can remember.
Thank you very much for that. Can you clarify if the Secretary General was Sainabu J or Sainabu Gay?
I was saying J. J.
J.
Sorry about that.
Thank you for that clarification.
J-A-Y-E.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that one of the ways in which GAMSU disseminated information to students was through the biannual magazine. Can you tell us what were some of the other mechanisms that GAMSU used to disseminate information to students, to its student body?
Traditionally, information was spread through, like when we had meetings, we also had, as of that date, we had, as of the period you have referred to, we had some very active regional organizers, and we would always also, and we had phone contacts with them, and we would always send information to them, to the regions also. We would do that, and by that time we had also acquired some. There was a cell phone for the secretary, for the president, and so that we had started using that modern technology to make calls and spread information as quickly as possible. Yeah.
In terms of information flow from the executive to the regional representatives, would that go through the information secretary, or would that be directly from the entire body to the regional representatives?
Most of the time they go through the information secretary, yes, and the information secretary works with the anything that had to do with the regional with our activities in the regions was directly under the portfolio of the vice president. So if we had anything that had to go to the regions, both the vice president and the information secretary had to be involved.
And generally, what was the format of the information that was disseminated? Was it written? Was it oral? Was it a combination of both?
It was a combination of all of those. Like we would send letters, we would make phone calls in the latter days. Yes, and we would also. Students are very good at spreading information by word of mouth. So we were doing all those things, all of them. It was a mixed basket.
What about access to the media? Did GAMSU have access to the media as a means of disseminating information to the student body?
Oh yes, any student experienced activist will tell you that the media is always a very potent source of means of spreading information. We had good relations with the media houses in the Gambia, and particularly when the FM station started, we were regularly invited on programs in the FM radio stations, and whenever we sought the opportunity to be on their programs, they had always responded positively. Even when the television started, and I think there have been occasions when we used the televisions television and the national radio to spread information. Because I can remember very well when we started the Trust Fund project, the vice president led a delegation to the Gambia radio, to the television, and they had some very good program to disseminate information about the Gamsu Trust Fund and so on. So we had access to those things like radio, television, and the print media. Yes, we had access to all of them.
So, Mr. Juf, in 1993 to 1994, you were the vice president, and then subsequent years down the line,
yes,
from 1999 to 2001, you were the president of GAMSU. I would like to have your perspective on the relationship between GAMSU and state authorities, and how that relationship evolved to the extent that you know.
Now, I have had two stints. I mean, like I have been in GAMS twice. Initially as vice president, and then at the time of the student demonstration in 2000 as president. Now, when we operated during two regimes, that is the Jawara regime and the Yahya Jammeh regime. The backgrounds, the environments were obviously different. During the Jawara regime, I think the politicians actually left us to ourselves and hardly ever interfere in anything we had to do. It was, I can remember all the way back to my high school days when we organized student demonstrations. When they were organized, they were mostly peaceful. And like I said, the politicians hardly interfered in what we had to do. But the problem in those days, surprisingly, was mainly coming from the technocrats, especially at the Ministry of Education, because I believe that they used the difference between the college students and high school students in regard of who is supposed to be the GAMSU president is supposed to come from. They use it to kind of put in place their own agenda on the student movement, which I believe is to kind of put the student union under control. That was the case, but when the military regime came and started the July 22nd youth movement, their number one focus was this movement. I remember when we had informed students about the advantages of staying non-partisan and the drawbacks in becoming partisan. So initially, when they tried to involve students at Gambia College in the July 22nd youth movement, is possible. We had sensitized students against becoming part of any political establishment. Instantly, the objective of the APRC administration and the APRC party became to involve students in their own activities. That is to recruit students and make the student movement partners in their own politics. So that's the different things.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about that, the efforts to involve students in the July 22nd movement?
Yeah, because I remember in 1996, around that time when they were forming it, our great sister Nimalani and Mr. Was it Tamsir? They went to the Gambia College to recruit them, to ask them to join the July 22nd youth movement, but the students refused to do so. And but along the line, by the time I became I became president, by the time we took over the student movement, leadership of the student movement, Gamsu had a full-blown relationship with the APRC and the president, particularly through the July 22nd youth movement.
And when you
That
say
is
that
the situation we
Gamsu,
found in place.
sorry to interrupt you. When you say that Gamsu had a relationship with the president at the time through the July 22nd movement, who in particular are you referring to within the July 22nd movement?
Most of the activities from July 22nd youth movement and were mostly led by the late Baba Job. It was like the main link between Gamsu and the president.
So when you took over as president in 1999, did that relationship with the July 22nd movement continue, or did that relationship change?
It was the relationship as we came on. It was too close for comfort. It was definitely too close, and we were not comfortable about that, because students had complaining about the proximity in terms of the relationship. Students, they still want the union to be non-partisan, and they do not want Gamsu so obvious hand in gloves with the regime. So what we did as a national student leadership was we instituted what we call a system of quarantine. We decided that no student leader in the Gambia no one should go to Kandilai without authority from us, and nobody was to make contacts with the president, Baba Job, the July 22nd youth movement, my predecessor Fakuru Silla, and there was some other individual. I was the lady who later became the Minister of Information. Was it Fatu Fai? Yes, that was it. We also put that lady in quarantine because we thought she was also trying to use Gamsu for some other reasons. So we put in place a system of quarantine, and then that succeeded because we had only one problem. Was some students went to Kandilai without our knowledge. Some students in the leadership we wrote strict warning letters to all of them.
So although when you came in as a new executive, you put in place a system of quarantine, so preventing any contact between members of Gamsu and the persons that you've mentioned, other than yourself as president. Can you tell us whether you had a good relationship with the authorities in spite of that, or a bad relationship prior to March 2000?
Up to that point, when we started initially, we inherited a very good relationship. So we maintain it because, as I have already alluded to, we are a pressure group, but we are also an interest group. As I remember way back, we have had opportunities to explain this to the authorities, especially when Sana Sabali and the others visited us at Gambia College. But generally we had good relations with the regime because that was what we inherited. So we kept it, we maintained it. Now, when we made that quarantine thing, we instituted better contacts, improved contacts with the Ministry of the Department of State of Education. Monthly meetings having monthly meetings with the SOS of Education, her team. So while we were trying to scale down our contacts with the political class, we were simultaneously developing contacts with the technocrats, because we felt that with those people, our non-party status would never be tampered with.
So you mentioned very briefly the meeting that GAMSU had with Sana Sabali. Can you just give us the date, and then we'll move on to other issues?
Yeah, we had that was during my first stint as vice president of GAMSU. That was at the Gambia College around the 19th of November, 1994.
So, as you said, you inherited a good relationship with the authorities, and this continued. Can you tell us? And now I'm focusing on March 2000. Can you, as president, was at the time?
Generally, as president of GAMSU, you coordinate the activities. Like I have explained, you are the chairman of the Central Executive Committee, so you organize those meetings in collaboration with the Secretary General. You build up your agenda, and when you get to the meetings, then you split the Secretary General, whatever is made up in terms of agenda, handed over to the president, and you proceed with your meeting. And the president also coordinates the activities, follows up whatever mandate or whatever assignment is given to other members of the executive committee. It's you follow up those things as they execute those plans on the ground. And like I have already alluded to, when it had to do with the provinces, you will always have to do that through the vice president and the information secretary. So yeah, generally that was and I as president, I led most delegations. And if I do, there have been instances when I thought, because of my experience, I should allow the other members of the executive I should give them the opportunity to gather experiences as well. So I have mostly allowed them, the vice president, to lead delegations or to lead programs on radio and television, while I sit home and observe them, and later we meet, I critique them and give them advice and things like that. But yeah, the president was in everything. When the information secretary is publishing anything, or when he is, we also, part of our fundraising is to print T-shirts and things like that. The president would still be in touch with him as he does those things and everything else. And as president also, I had control over what was petty cash. Now, when I came in, there was both petty and transport allowance. I said, this is not necessary. I don't like it. I don't trust those proliferation accounts like that, because it creates chances for corruption and things like that. So I banned the transport allowance, and we retain the pass, which used for paying the fares of executive members as they travel to and from meetings and so on. So, yes, I had control over that to the petty cash. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Juve. I'd like to focus on the events of March and April 2000, focusing first on the incidents that sparked the student demonstrations. Can you tell us about how you came to learn about those incidents, and what measures were taken by GAMSU?
From around the weekend of the 9th, 10th, 11th, or was it 10th, 11th, 12th? That is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I had come home from the provinces with some other members of the executive committee. We had gone out to sensitize students about the GAMSU Trust Fund. So when I came home, I found a note there from an ex-officio, a co-opted member of the Central Executive, Molo Sow, or is it Molo? That's his name, Molo. I can't remember the family name now. But he left a note to the effect that a girl had been raped at the Independence Stadium while there was, an inter-school sports competition was going on there. So that was that weekend when I returned home. That was what I found. But already, I was also informed by the vice president of GAMSU about the incident of a student at Brikama Foster's Senior Secondary School who teaches and some fire and ambulance service officials and ultimately lost his life the following day. I had information from the vice president, but the information in regard of Binta Mane, I got that from a note I found home, and it was left there by Molo for me.
You've given us the name of the student that was involved in what happened at the Independence Stadium, the one that was allegedly raped. Can you give us the name of the student that you talked about regarding Foster's school?
That was Ibrahim Abari. Ibrahim Abari.
So can you tell us what are some of the measures that GAMSU took in relation to or in response to these two incidents?
Now, what we did was the vice president was in Brikama then, because he comes from Brikama. He was at the Gambia College as well. So we determined that he should cover whatever was going on in Brikama, and then I should lead my other colleagues in covering whatever was around, Banjul, Serakunda, Bakau area. So that was what we did. Now, when I had that information, about the rape case, what I did that Monday, I went to school at GTTI because I was attending lectures there. But after my lecture was in the morning. After the lecture, myself, the Information Secretary, Alaji Kamara, and the Assistant Secretary General, Daniel Davis, we went to Banjul. No, on that occasion, I went alone. That was on Monday, the 13th. I went straight to the Ministry of Education and asked them about what had happened, and I discussed it with them. They had already been informed about it. So we determined there to go to hospital to look for the girl.
So before you proceed to the hospital, Mr. Juve, sorry to interrupt you. Before you proceed to the hospital, I'd like to focus on the meeting that you had at the Ministry of Education. Can you tell us who you had the meeting with?
When I had the meeting, it was the Chief Education Officer, was then Dr. Ja, and the Assistant Director of Education, Mr. Hassan Ju.
Do you recall the first name of Dr.
And there was a third party. I think it was Mohammed. I am not sure.
You told us that you went there to inform them of the incident regarding the schoolgirl who was raped at the stadium, but they said they were already aware of it. Can you tell us about more information about the content of those discussions? Now,
generally, what we did there, what we discussed was what to do about what to do that day about the girl. Where is the girl? And it was confirmed that we discussed that the girl was hospitalized at the RVTH, and then we decided what should be done. So in order to do all that, at the meeting, it was decided that we should go to the hospital to check on the girl.
So
So
prior
a
to
vehicle
you
was
going to the hospital with officials of the Ministry of Education, as far as you know, did they mention any steps that they had taken in order to address the situation?
No. Unfortunately, no. The unfortunate thing about this thing is that it was the student body that was initiating activities and actions all the time. So it was a result of my presence at the Ministry of Education that it was determined that we should go to the hospital to check on the girl.
Can you tell us who went with you from the Ministry of Education to the hospital, the RVH, as it was at the time?
I, I, I definitely Mr. Hassan Juf was there. I can't. It was three of us went, but I cannot remember the other person's name. But I do remember Mrs. Hassan Juice. Yeah, because I had known him by then.
Can you tell us what happened when you arrived at the RVH?
Now, when we got to the RVTH, we were told that the girl had been discharged. But the senior nurse in the ward at the gynae ward where she was hospitalized, she pulled out the girl's hospital card and read what was written on it for us, which was like an explanation of what had happened to her physically, you know, and it in other words, she gave us information which was indicative of the fact that, or was evidence that the girl had actually been raped.
And very briefly, did she provide you any information about the condition of the girl at the time?
Yes, she said by the time the girl came to the hospital and when they checked, found that she had been penetrated and that there were cuts and bruises on her genitals.
Mr. Juve, after that meeting at the RVH, where did you go next?
Now we were told that the girl left with her teacher, her head teacher, and sports teachers, but they left for Gambia High School because Mr. Willika was also there, and because he was the chairman of the school's intersports committee at the time. So we thought they had gone to Gambia High School, so we went to Gambia High School first. When we arrived at Gambia High School, we were told that they had gone to Bakau Police Station, but that's because that's the police station with jurisdiction over the area in which the incident took place.